Curse of Strahd campaigns typically last a year or more. I've heard of some lasting 2 years, in fact. It's not really all that surprising. There is a lot to unpack in this book over here. There's a lot of quests, a lot of history, a lot of lore, a lot of NPCs, just a lot of everything. And it's no surprise that it is Wizard of the Coast's most popular adventure module. Despite how wonderful it is, however, all Curse of Strahd campaigns have to come to an end, one way or another. Ending your Curse of Strahd campaign is no small feat, or at least it shouldn't be. There's been months upon months of collaborative storytelling and all these meetings between you and your players, lives lived and lost in this world of imagination. And all of that deserves some way to wrap it all up into a nice little package with no loose ends. How do you put the final nail into the coffin, so to speak, with panache and style? How do you give a memorable ending to this most memorable of campaigns? Well, let's find out. First off, what is an epilogue? An epilogue is the very end of a story that's used to bring closure to the whole thing. It pulls back away from the major plot and it focuses on the small things, individual characters and their lives, now that the main story has been resolved. In the context of a tabletop role-playing game, you are wrapping up your campaign story and focusing on the NPCs and the player characters and their lives now that everything else has been resolved. Where do they go? What do they do? How are their lives changed? But not only that, you're looking at the world as a whole. What effects have these player characters and their adventure had on the environment, the world, the politics, everything? So when do you do an epilogue? Obviously, you don't do it before you've wrapped up your campaign. That's kind of a given. It has to happen at the end. But more specifically, you have a choice to either do it during your last session as sort of an improv back and forth thing where you're all just making things up on the spot, or you can have it in its own session later on. Personally, I like to do it during the final session. Everybody's still riding on their high from completing this big campaign and everything's still fresh in all of our minds. This way we get to sit there and improvise and go back and forth on what's happened to the characters, what's happened to the world, and really collaborate on it and build it together right there on the spot. It's a lot of fun, and then at the end of the session, we know everything is done. We have closure and it's all over. Now, on the other hand, maybe you want to have a bit more planning involved. You could all go off and have it in a different session. 2 weeks from now, you'll have your epilogue. Everybody goes home and writes their characters' stories, and you get to write what happens to all of the NPCs that they encountered along the way and what's happened to the world and whatnot. Both of these approaches, improvising on the spot and going home to write your story for a future session, have merits. It's really up to a personal taste. It's up to you. There's no right answer here one way or another. Alright, circling back to Curse of Strahd now. Before you and your players sit down and go back and forth on what's happened after Strahd's demise, figure out what kind of ending they've actually earned throughout their journey in Barovia. Did they do a lot of good things and get a good ending? Did they do a lot of bad things and get a bad ending? I don't know. It's entirely up to you. There's a really wide spectrum of endings that any party can get. There are so many quests and NPCs that all of it really ranges from, yay, Strahd's dead and we get to go home, hooray! All the way to, oh my god, this is so terrible. Can we bring Strahd back, please? He was so much better than what's going on right now. So yeah, lots of room on the spectrum. Before you deliver your epilogue, go ahead and take a look back on everything that's happened during your game, tally things up, and figure out where on this spectrum they sit. Now, here are some signs that maybe they earned a bad ending. While all the other planes of existence are at recess, Barovia is still eating lunch by itself in the library. One or more of the characters has started recruiting for Vestige's multi-level marketing scheme. The abbot is still building Frankenstein's blow-up doll. Everyone in Barovia is vibing to dream pastries. Hero Stoyanovich is running a daycare. The town of Vallaki is now the charcoal pit of Vallaki. Winter Splinter is now the chief grape stomper at the winery. There's a new Dark Lord and he's using Strahd's corpse like it's weekend at Bernie's. Then again, on the other hand, maybe they reached a good ending. Here are some signs of that. Strahd's dead. Strahd's consorts are dead. Baba Lyaga's dead. The hags are dead. Kirill is dead. The abbot is dead. The druids are dead. Vargas is dead. hang on. There's gotta be more to getting a good ending than just killing people, right? Let's try this again. Barovia rejoins the material plane. There might have been a village or two where it now sits, but hey, net population gain, right? Argynvostolt is now the world's biggest flashlight. The Mardikovs get to go back to making everybody drunk, and they don't have to worry about the Blair Witch showing up to ruin their day. Gertruda goes home, and Mary stops all the flowers in the attic crap. Literally any functioning adult is put in charge of Vallaki. Irina gives up all semblance of her own personality for a man she neither knows or remembers. Wait, that last one was a little dark. I'm sure she'll be fine. Before we move on with our next session, you should know you can get this guide and all of the other Lunch Break Heroes guides for just $1 over on Patreon. But not only that, I have a very special piece of news for you. We here at Lunch Break Heroes are creating our first physical product, something that you can hopefully buy in stores at some point in the future. Our Kickstarter for The Deck of Many Quests is kicking off in March, so definitely check out the link in the description down below. Every copy of the Deck of Many Quests comes with 200 cards in this nice little box here, or one kind of like it. This is actually just a proof print, it's not necessarily the final product. Anyways, there are 50 quest cards, 75 item cards, and 75 creature cards. If you're low on inspiration or time, go ahead and draw a quest card and then read its description. It'll tell you how many creature and item cards to draw, then go ahead and do that. Fill in the blanks basically and create your own quest with a little bit of imagination. It's basically Cards Against Humanity meets Dungeons & Dragons minus the bathroom humor. Now, to give you a little bit of a demonstration here, I've got a quest card in my hand called Now Where Did I Put That? This is a researcher who's lost their item while out studying creature in its natural habitat. The researcher wants the item back, but the creature is really attached to it. The item in question here is a totem of the gods. This is a little figurine that gives its owner a direct line to a god of their choice. They can talk directly to the god, and the god can answer through the totem. It crumbles to dust after a single use. The creature card here is a celestial. It is a bloodthirsty unicorn corrupted by demonic influence. Now, the demon infesting this unicorn would definitely want this totem. They would probably want to talk to one god or another. To what end, I'm not entirely sure, but you know what? In your world, maybe they have a really good reason. Or if you don't want this particular creature or that item by chance, you can draw another card. Draw something else that makes sense or something that just tickles your fancy. It's a very flexible system, and it is system agnostic. There is nothing in here that ties it to Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder or Dungeon World or whatnot. It is entirely open to any system whatsoever and any edition whatsoever. All right, that's it. That's my spiel about the Deck of Many Quests. Definitely check out the link in the description down below. We'd love to have your support behind this project. This is my first sponsor video, I guess. Is it really a sponsorship if it's my own product? I don't know. In any case, on with the rest of the guide. Now that you know what kind of ending your party has earned through their actions in the campaign, it's time to put it all together and figure out what's happened to Barovia and its people as a whole. If your players have written their own epilogues for a separate session, go ahead and read them all over and weave them in with your own epilogue. Figure out what works best, make it all gel together. It's basically what you did with player backstories at the beginning of the game, except in the other direction at the end of the game. On the other hand, if you're improvising at the table, go ahead and go first as the DM to kind of set the stage and let them know what has happened in Barovia in the days and the weeks following Strahd's demise. Then let them feed off of that and start giving you their characters' information. First, figure out what's happened to the land of Barovia. After Strahd dies, what happens to the mists, for example? Do they disappear? If they do, what lies beyond? Is it the homeland of the player characters, or is it another domain of dread, perhaps? Or does Barovia just blink out of existence? Although if it does, it's a really short epilogue, so maybe don't do that. Next, figure out what's happened to the important NPCs that your parties run into during their journey. These are the NPCs that they've interacted with or adventured with, or who were just really important to the players themselves. Maybe they really latched on to that lovable shopkeep or bartender or whatnot. They're going to want to know how those stories resolve. Are these characters alive or are they dead? Are their lives better for having run into the player characters, or are they by chance worse? Do they leave Barovia as soon as they can, or do they stick around? Take Esmeralda and Van Richten, for example. Do they reconcile? Are they off hunting monsters once again, or do they go their own separate ways? What's Blinsky up to? Everybody wants to know what's up with Blinsky. Next, try to tie up loose ends. If your party abandoned a quest line, like let's say reuniting Gertruda and Mary, how did that turn out? Did they find each other eventually, or is Gertruda just roaming Castle Ravenloft, taking care of it as best as she can, just in case Mr. Strahd returns? If they didn't investigate the werewolf den, are they now running amok now that Strahd is not there to keep them in check? Go ahead and explore stuff like that and bring a resolution to all of those pieces that your party came into contact with but maybe didn't bring to a close themselves. Then of course there's the character epilogues. Every player should have a chance to go over their own character's resolution. They can read it from their prepared statement, or they can improvise it there on the spot, however you end up doing it. But let them work with you while you're telling the tale of the world. Just as if you're DMing a scene during normal gameplay, go ahead and stop and let them have a turn at an appropriate moment. Did they, for example, run away with Esmeralda to fight monsters? Or did they settle down in Vallaki and open up a shop or something? Or did they hightail it home as fast as they could go? There's no combat here during the epilogue. There are no high stakes. There probably won't be a single die rolled the entire time. It's all just fluff. Just a bunch of people sitting around making up stories. And you know what? That's my favorite part of the whole game.